Hello everyone! Welcome back to Needle Workshop. I'm really too spastic now. Okay, my name is Emily and I'm back today with another tutorial for my pattern. For our new pattern inspired by Mitsuri from Demon Slayer. This pattern is available online for download along with the fully written tutorial. The pattern will be linked in the description box below. The written tutorial also includes tons of info such as how to properly measure yourself, how to print the pattern, and additional material and tool suggestions and whatnot. I'm way too hyped right now. I need to calm myself down. Now, before we get started, I'd like to let you all know that we already have a video out that covers all of the materials we've used for this particular project. So I'm gonna link it somewhere on the screen. As always, I suggest making a quick mock-up so you can get the fit just right for you. And if, like me, you plan on making a giant pair of titties, then please make sure to have those ready to test your fit. Also keep in mind that the seam allowance is always 1 centimeter from the edge unless specified otherwise. So now, let's get started. Bring out your center back, and side pieces. Make sure they are all overlocked at the side seams and sew them together right side to right side at the side seams. Notice that there's a slight error in my video as I've included the front side piece. Make sure to iron your seam allowances open and set your piece aside. Bring out your center front and side front pieces as well as your center front and side front lining pieces. Make sure the self pieces are fully interfaced. Right side to right side, sew the front and side front together at the side seams and do the same with the lining. Iron your seam allowances open. On the left side front panels, install your welt pocket. Please refer to the double welt pocket video for further instructions. Bring back out your lining piece that matches your front and sew together right side to right side at the curved front, center front, and hem. Do not sew them together at the neckline. Cut off the excess seam allowance at the corners. And cut notches into the curved area before turning your piece inside out. Wrong side to wrong side, align the side seam of your lining to the self and sew together with an overlock. Tuck in the excess overlock using a blunt needle at the hem. I had originally also overlocked the shoulder piece together, but they're actually meant to be overlocked separately. Make sure to prep your right hand front side in the same manner without the double welt pocket. Bring back out your center back piece. Overlock the shoulders. Finish the hem by folding it inwards by 1 cm twice and top stitching into place. Sew your front panels to the back panel at the side seams. Iron your seam allowance open. Next, we'll be prepping our collar piece. Sew the collar accent to the collar piece. If you find corners to be tricky, please check out our video on the subject for further instructions. Iron your seam allowance open. Take out your collar lining piece and make sure that it's fully interfaced and align it to your collar. Make sure your notches match up and sew in place at the side and top seams. Cut off the excess seam allowance at all the corners. Remove some excess seam allowance at the top seam of the collar lining. Iron the seam allowance towards the collar lining and sew the seam allowance to the lining 3 mm from the edge. This allows the seam of the collar to roll seamlessly towards the inside of the collar for a nicer finish. Iron your collar flat and top stitch in the center of the white accent. I suggest using a longer stitch for this. You can't see the results very well here, so I added an extra reference to see what it looks like. Bring your bodice piece back out. Sew your self pieces together at the shoulder seams, right side to right side, and avoid catching in the lining. Take out your back-facing piece, make sure it's fully interfaced, and sew the lining pieces at the shoulder, right side to right side. Your back-facing piece is in fact shorter than your lining at the shoulder. Fold the rest of your lining's shoulder in by 1 cm. If done right, your self and lining should match perfectly at the neck. Next, we're going to need to sandwich the collar between the self and lining at the neck. Turn your bodice inside out and insert the collar in between the layers. To make sure your collar comes out with the right side facing outward, make sure that the side of the collar with the accent is lined up to the self. Pin in place and sew. Cut some notches in the seam allowance of the collar and turn inside out. Iron everything in place and top stitch the bodice to the lining 2 mm from the seam allowance of your neck. Take out your sleeve piece, both small and big. Overlock them at the side seam before lining them up right side to right side at the seam and sewing in place. Iron your seam allowance open. Take out your cuff pieces and sew them to themselves right side to right side at the side seams. Iron your seam allowance open. Fold in half along the longest length, wrong side to wrong side, and iron flat. Align each cuff to the right side of each sleeve, making sure to align your notches to the seams. Pin in place and sew together, both with a straight stitch at 1 cm from the edge and an overlock. Send the seam allowance inwards and fold the sleeves about halfway over the cuff. Iron in place. Sew the cuff in place by stitching in the ditch of each sleeve seam. Gather the crown of your sleeve between the designated notches. Align your sleeves to your armholes right side to right side and sew in place. Sew in place both sleeves and overlock the seam allowance. Lastly, you'll need to sew in your front closure, buttons, and snaps at the neck. You may refer to the pattern for the placement of all of these pieces. Personally, I took a little bit of liberty here and just worked around with what I had available. And with that, you are done. Alright everyone, I hope this video tutorial was helpful. If you have any questions, please make sure to leave them in the comments section below. If you like this kind of content, then please give it a big thumbs up, subscribe, ring the bell. All of this really helps support the channel. If you'd like to know more about our upcoming projects, then you can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We share a lot of things there that we can't share on YouTube. And if you end up using any of our patterns or tutorials to make your own beautiful costumes, then tag us, let us know, let us see them. We love to share your work. And I think that's it for today, folks. So until next time, good luck with your projects, guys. Bye-bye. Oh, she's a natural in front of the camera. No! Mute! Who's messaging me?